What's in the box?
Satisfied? What's in the Box is an unpleasant episode. I wish I could say the climax is at least entertaining, but it's not. The truth is, there isn't much of a moral here, which makes it unique for the Twilight Zone and kind of tricky for me to talk about. Maybe this is too dramatic of me to say, but I'll give a light trigger warning for anyone who is set off by seeing domestic violence. An old married couple, Joe and Phyllis Britt, argue every day, as their animosity toward each other has only grown 27 years into their marriage. Their television set has been on the fritz lately, and a repairman stops by to fix it up. After Joe admonishes him for taking so long and overcharging the service, the peculiar troubleshooter walks out, saying his work was free. Joe is surprised to see that they're getting a signal on Channel 10, but is shocked by its programming. He looks on at himself, interacting with the woman he's been cheating on his wife with. Joe's been lying to Phyllis, saying he's been traveling to Yonkers, New York and back on his cab route as his reason for coming home late. The channel continues to show other recent events, including his conversation with Phyllis from just minutes prior and even a vision of an event that hasn't occurred, where they get into a physical altercation. The fight ends with Joe killing his wife by punching her out a window. The husband hysterically shouts in horror as Phyllis enters, only to see a scrambled image on the set. She calls a doctor, leaving Joe in bed with a contrite demeanor, still dismayed by what he saw. Martin M. Goldsmith must have been trying to push the envelope with his Twilight Zone material because he not only wrote this, he also penned The Encounter, a controversial installment we'll get to soon. Although he apparently didn't like what's in the box. He's quoted in Mark Scott Zickry's The Twilight Zone Companion as saying, "It lacked all subtlety the way it was done. I think Joan Blondell and William Demarest overplayed it. It was just too broad." I fail to see where the subtlety in this story could have come into play, but maybe a different director would have given an alternate perspective. Richard L. Baer helmed his last of an impressive 7 TZ productions. His work includes Third from the Sun, Nick of Time, and the mega-popular To Serve Man. But he also had lower quality stuff like The Prime Mover and The Fugitive to his name. What's in the Box is not executed poorly in my opinion. Everything is technically sound and kept my attention, just in an uncomfortable way. I really love the idea of a TV showing someone snippets of their own life. This concept brought to mind the Season 6 Black Mirror episode, Joan is Awful. That story ends up going down a much different path, but in the beginning, the premise is quite similar. William Demarest as Joe, watching these scenes play out, gives appropriate and believable reactions. He's a great crotchety old man whose verbal spats with his wife come off pretty realistic. There's an escalation to their arguments that read as very natural. If you've ever been around a bickering older couple, you've likely seen some of these patterns. Hopefully not as intensely, but the basics of a broken, festering relationship are there. The vitriol between Demarest and Joan Blondell as Phyllis is palpable.
I don't get a man coming home, I get a used article from the cab. Don't jump out a window, Joe. One of these days I'll even up the score. It'll be a real tight ball game.
You're a stupid cow, a bird brain. Who do you two think you're fooling with?
Okay. I'll call him right away. Meanwhile, you get in bed.
One aspect of the story I think could have been done better was the repairman. Sterling Holloway breaks the fourth wall twice in actions that seem more like a parody of Twilight Zone than one of the actual installments.
This time it's on me. Free. Well, you can't win them all.
You're not hearing things. That's Winnie the Pooh. Holloway had nearly 200 credits in his career, but the voices he did for Disney are chief among the most memorable.
Oh, bother.
This was an odd casting choice. Not because Holloway started playing Pooh a few years later, but because of his general manner. The guy pretty much winks at the camera. Isn't that why Rod Serling was always there? The other small roles in this episode are fine. Howard Wright as the judge and Sandra Gold as the woman Joe cheats with appeared in previous episodes.
I trusted you. I didn't hold anything back.
The mistress's words would be repeated later to hammer home how much of a two-timer Mr. Britt really was. Recovering from seeing the deadly vision, Joe admits to and apologizes for cheating on Phyllis. He states that he truly loves his wife. Mrs. Britt becomes enraged, snapping at Joe for his betrayal and packing up her things, saying she'll see him in court.
Giving you the best years of my life.
I trusted you.
Channel 10 is still on the TV, playing Joe's trial for killing his wife. A judge sentences him to death, and Mr. Britt watches as he's strapped to an electric chair for execution. Although she can't see this, Phyllis knows the TV disturbs her husband, so she puts it back on after he turns it off and antagonizes him with laughter and mockery. Joe is pushed over the edge. He punches through the TV screen and goes after his wife. The pair tear up their home, fighting each other until the husband socks Phyllis right through the window and she falls to her death. The vision on the TV screen has come true. Police and neighbors burst in. Joe is arrested. A familiar figure also appears, mixed in with the group.
Fix your set okay, mister? You will recommend my service, won't you?
There are a few messages that Goldsmith may have been attempting to deliver with his script. Joe is a TV addict, so seeing his own demise on screen is supposed to be poetic. It's also established that he loves watching pro wrestling. Is the violence he gets entertainment from meant to correlate to his brawl with Phyllis? He does crack a chair over her back. While Rod Serling didn't write this episode, we had a clue into his negative view of the performative sport with how his famous Requiem for a Heavyweight story finished. In the end, it all just feels like pointless violence, and not the fun or funny kind. It's an uneasy watch. Why show that fight in such detail, and what are we supposed to learn here? In most TZ eps that are a little more fervent, there's a reason behind it. The moral in What's in the Box isn't very clear to me. Don't cheat on your spouse? Well, yeah, sure. But then why does Phyllis die like that? They tried to show her as vindictive in the last scene.
I'd take a butcher knife to you if you weren't in bed and out of your right mind.
Things almost get surreal in this low-angle shot as well.
Yonkers, yonkers, yonkers!
She thinks Joe has some kind of mental condition and is exploiting that by turning on the TV, but did she deserve to die because of it? She suspected her husband was cheating from the beginning, and she was right. Part of her reaction to Joe's confession is justified. Mr. Britt's confession itself could have been a turning point for the episode to show us some kind of ethical expression, but it just devolves into madness. The most disturbing material in the show also extends to Joe watching himself about to die on TV. There's no music in that scene. It's eerily quiet, and Demarest looks like he's about to legitimately crap himself. It gets dark. But again, why? The tone is even all over the place. After the worst comes to pass and Joe kills his wife, he's hauled off to prison when the repairman shows up to tease him. We end the episode on this goofy music under Rod's narration.
The next time your TV set is on the blink, when you're in the need of a first-rate repairman, may we suggest our own specialist?
There's just no rhyme or reason. Maybe there was a disconnect from page to screen, I don't know. Martin Goldsmith seemed to think so. It's not like the episode is of poor quality, I just missed out on the point of these folks' cruel fate. That fight especially feels wrong and at best unearned. Maybe I'm thinking too hard about this or missing something. What are your thoughts? I'm very curious to hear your interpretation of the content of this story. Drop a comment and let me know. I'll be reading them from the Twilight Zone.